Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about living a life that reflects your values and priorities. Welcome to Engineer Your Success, the podcast that helps you lead with intention and live fulfilled.
There's a version of success that looks right from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. The calendar is full, the work is real, and the results are there. But somewhere in the middle of it all, the person doing it stopped feeling like they were actually living. Today's guest, Matt Granados, has built his life's work around this conviction. Fulfillment is not a byproduct of achievement. It is a result of intentionality. And most of us have never been taught what it actually looks like in practice. I'm your host, Dr. James Bryant, and I want to welcome you to the Engineer Your Success podcast. Today, we're getting into what it means to stop drifting through life, the life that you've built, and start being present inside that life. So let's stop running on autopilot and engineer your success. Matt, welcome to the show.
Doc, I appreciate you having me, and great introduction. I appreciate that. Every now and then I get a traditional, here's what our team sent over, and that's going to bring us down a really fun path, so I'm excited to be here today.
Well, I like for these to be really organic, no interview on this podcast is exactly the same we made before we dive into today's topic. If you had one word to describe yourself, what would you choose and why that word?
Ignorant.
Okay.
Right. And here's why. I have found that my ignorance has been my key to success. Just not knowing what it should be like, not knowing what's quote unquote acceptable or is what's expected, and doing what it is that I feel called to do. And then just following truth, right? So because of the ignorance, truth is what makes more sense than what the world says. So I think there's that element that we don't realize, that a lot of the reasons entrepreneurs, like when we have new people come into our team, I always say, hey, heads up, it looks like we know what we're doing, and we do compared to a lot of people. However, when it comes to ignorance, is knowing that I don't know everything and being okay with that and understanding that's part of the game is what has allowed me to do some things that don't make any sense, but yet make massive impact.
No, I love that. And it's pairing the ignorance with the desire to fill that gap. Because there's some people that are ignorant and they're not trying to fill the gap. So there's a connection to success, a connection to fulfillment in bridging that gap.
And it comes with the humility of being willing to have those gaps be exposed.
Yes.
And that's where I think humans fall trapped, right? Pride comes in, ego comes in, arrogance comes in. And what has to happen is coming in knowing how ignorant we truly are. And one place I learned that was my daughter, Natalie. Natalie has an extremely rare medical condition, 17th to ever have it, youngest by far. She's 1 in 600 billionth of a chance to have happened with the way the genetics came together. All those things line up, and you sit there and go, all right, doc, what do we do about it? And they go, yeah, we don't know much about that one. In fact, we don't know much about many of them. We know a little bit about a few of them, and we just kind of sequence the genome, but we don't really know what they all do. That reality that we don't realize how little we know, but the assumption should be we know less than we think, and we should be more aware of what truth is and allow it to mold us versus us trying to mold our own truths.
How does that flow into or fit into the mission behind the work that you currently do?
Yeah, so Life Pulse started by accident. It all came from me protecting me, and then when my wife and I decided to get married, she came and looked at me and was like, man, Matt, I knew marrying you was going to be hard, but I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. Like, you're insane. How do you keep this thing moving that makes no sense? I'm like, oh, well, there's these 9 questions I asked myself. So I presented it to her. She made it look nice. I realized her and I were completely on different pages, right? I thought I knew what we wanted. I thought I knew what was best for us, but really it was best for me as she came along with me, which is not how marriage works. All of a sudden, I brought it to my assistant. I brought it to my sales team. I brought it to our warehouse team. And then we built this entire company based on this concept of bringing intentionality back to life. And I realized I didn't know much about the people I was paying. I just thought I knew about them. And what I thought I knew about them are really just what I wanted to think about them. Like, I never really took time to understand who they are or what they do. So with all that being said, that's how the whole thing came to. understanding my ignorance of others, and realizing, wait a minute, if we just go off our thoughts, there's a higher chance that I'm wrong than I'm right. Like a meteorologist, there's a higher chance they're wrong than they're right. But yet we still give them the grace that they need. But in our situation, are we willing to constantly examine ourselves to make sure we are in alignment with truth? Or are we going to sit there and say, I say this is right, and therefore I'm going to die on this hill? And I always tell people, then you're going to die on that hill.
Yeah.
Doesn't end well.
So you've mentioned the concept of truth a few times. And so what separates the quote unquote truth from a perspective?
Yeah, truth. Another way to think about it is separating truth from fact. And perspective comes underneath that with opinion, right? And people are always like, perspective is reality. I go, no, perspective is perspective. Reality is reality. I get the concept, but let's not fall trap to using words that don't mean the same thing as one, right? A fact is something that is accurate at that time, right? So what color shirt is Doc Bryant wearing? Is it purple or blue? I just want to make sure. Blue. All right, cool. It is blue. Matt is wearing red. That is a fact that likely would be wrong tomorrow. Does that make sense? So it doesn't make it inaccurate. It's just not a truth,
Okay.
right? But
it's the truth for right now.
In the moment, it's time sensitive, but truth is constant. Truth never changes. Truth is constant. Application changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let's unpack that a little bit and give me some examples.
So, for example, if I were to take this marker and I was to drop it, there is a truth that there is a gravitational pull that regardless of where I go or what I do, that will always happen unless I find another truth that can counter that truth, right? So due to the gravitational pull, there's this thing called aerodynamics that allows you to do things that seem to actually counter gravity, but it actually is using the law of gravity to bring another law out. Does that make sense? Because if you stop the law of aerodynamic and you stop matching that, gravity does sink in and you will fall. So we have to be careful not building our life on foundations of opinions or perspectives. It has to be truth. So, for example, let's use being prejudiced towards people. Assuming a certain group of people is always going to act a very specific way, that is a foolish way to live your life, right? Hey, this is true. This is, I'm from Philly, right? Matt's from Philly. He's going to be blunt. He's going to be harsh. He's going to be direct. I happen to be all of those, right? That is very natural to me. However, if you were to see me around my kids, it might be different. So that is not necessarily a stone cold truth that Matt is always this way. And that's where we have to be careful. There are not many truths, but truths have not changed since the beginning of time.
Okay. So let's lay out some of these truths in how they apply in your business.
So one of the truths that I have found is that I've never experienced someone who has actually experienced fulfillment without having intentionality being the catalyst, meaning accidental fulfillment, right? And I would say this is something that we are looking into as a truth, but I would just say I've never seen evidence of it elsewhere. Now, where do my truths come from, right? Mine come from faith, right? Biblically, that is where I see truths come from. I don't want to counter how the universe was created or the one who created the universe. I want to be in line with those truths, not at odds with those truths. So that's where a lot of it starts. From there, we rely on truths like when you take this action, the byproduct has been shown to be this. So when you plan effectively, the byproduct is you will have a better week or a better month or a better year. That is a truth. What is not a truth is just because you plan means your week's going to be easy.
Okay. So
does that make sense?
Even in that example, I would even go down this road and say it is a truth because you use the word effectively. If I plan effectively, then I'll have a successful week. But if I plan that doesn't necessarily mean that I will have a successful week. Effectively is the thing that turns that truth turns on.
Correct. And recognizing one of the truths is, if I'm not always right, how can I expect others to always be right? One of the
Okay.
truths is the value of grace. I did not mean it to be received that way. Then why am I assuming they're trying to hurt me? It's positive bias towards us and negative bias towards others. Those are the type of things that we work on and going, hey, before we point fingers, let's fix you first. Once we fix you, and by fixing you, it means recognizing that it is broken and there is room to grow. When you recognize that, humility will come in. And when humility will come in, grace will go out. And
But what if I say I'm not broken?
yeah, then we have a lot more work to do with you, because what's happening is you're just being naive to whatever it is. So the question is not that you're broken in a sense of you're worthless. You're broken in a sense that means you're not perfect. And in that brokenness, you are a perfect human. Humans, the perfect version of a human in today's world has brokenness in them.
But what if I just say I am good
Mhm.
and I'm improving? That there's
That's
room for
perfect.
improvement, but I'm not broken.
Yeah, that's fine. Then I would say you're just bothered by the word broken, right? It's like I don't like the word yellow, so I'm going to say this is a different shade of orange. Well, okay, fine. Semantics. I'm not here to argue unnecessary semantics, right? You and I were talking about this earlier. There's a lot of things when you anchor things in truth. There's a lot of different ways you can describe them. Let's use like personality tests. I mean, there's basically a couple core personalities that people have branded many different ways, whether it's letters, animals, colors, like you name it. The truth is behind what's in the core of it, not necessarily how it's presented. And that's the same focus here. So like, all right, you don't want to admit you're broken. I'm fine with that. My question back to you, if you were a coaching client of mine, is why is that so uncomfortable for you to admit? You just admit you have room to grow. So you admit, and what it probably is why I've taken a bunch of personal development courses and they talk about being positive and everything and having that mindset. And I said, no, I'm all for positive mindset, but I'm not for false affirmations of self. There's nothing loving about that. And what I did, we did a whole session on this about the power of affirmation and the danger of affirmation, right? Which again, I'm not against you having positive self-talk. You're getting out there, getting ready to go give a big presentation, and you want to set yourself up to be in the right mindset. I am all for that. However, there needs to be a catalyst to this, and it's a combination of having being critical versus uncritical and supportive versus unsupportive. So here's how I break these down when I'm working with an individual like that. A lot of times for ourselves, we are uncritical and supportive. That's dangerous. A lot of time for others, we are critical and unsupportive. I call that mean. The goal is to be critical and supportive. I call that loving. Meaning I'm going to be honest, because love is honest. I'm going to be honest with myself, but I'm also going to be supportive. So yeah, Matt, you are broken and there is room to grow and you're doing the things you need to do. So therefore keep going.
Yeah, but what if I frame it from the perspective that I'm not broken, but the systems that I'm currently using to support my goals or my life is what's broken?
Then I would sit there and say, then let's find better systems. Because basically if the systems are broken, the systems are bad. The beautiful thing is systems do the same thing over and over again. So if you have bad systems, that's a problem. So here's something we use. We wrote a book called Motivate the Unmotivated, and we put together this equation. And again, here's an example of it's not necessarily truth, this equation, but if you try it and put it to the test, I haven't seen it proved wrong yet. It's the sum of you plus the sum of them. How well you know you, how well you know them, times whatever system you're putting in place equals the desired outcome.
Okay.
Now, here's the key. How well you know you, if that's a negative, meaning I'm not broken, yeah, you're in the negative there. If you come out and blatantly say that you're in the negative, you're either naive, delusional, or unwilling to address issues. One of those three, right? So could be a combination. If you're not willing or able to say that. Now, that's a negative. Let's say you don't take the time to know other people. That's a negative. You do the sum of those two equals a negative times whatever system you put in place. Anything times a negative equals what? A negative. So no matter how good of a system you have, if how well you know the two variables that go into the system, which is yourself if you're by yourself, or you and others if you're doing this as a team, is going to produce a positive or negative result.
Your math breaks down. If you have a negative times a negative equals a positive, the fundamentally the truth of the math breaks down.
No, you're correct on that. The addition to that, which is written out in the book, is that the system, before you take a system and use it, you need to make sure it actually works. And that it is positive.
That makes sense. I still come back to this whole ideal of the person is broken. And some people are broken and some people are not. But I think from the discussion that we're having, you come into the discussion with the assumption that everybody's broken.
Broken is not a bad word. And maybe that's the part that keeps popping in, is like broken is a negative thing because we're told in this world that we need to be perfect. Again, the question I would have with that, maybe not broken, but is there any flaw in you?
Okay.
Do you have a flaw?
I would say, is there an area that needs improvement? Is there an area of my life that needs improvement? Because if I am okay with the results that I've gotten so far, with where I am so far from what I've done in the past or what I'm doing, then that's okay. But if I want to change or I want something different, then I need to do something different. And so then I look at, based on where I want to go, what things need to change in order for me to reach that state. That doesn't mean that I'm broken, but it does mean that I need to improve.
Let's say I'm having a conversation and somebody says, look, I just hate the word broken. I don't want to say I'm broken. I would say, okay, is there any flaw or anything you need to improve? Perfect. Let's go that route. I have found humans sometimes, for whatever reason, we do a good job of being a victim, and we don't change much when we think we're a victim, meaning I could do better. What I also found is humans tend to put the bar of status quo like right below their feet. Like they're a little higher than just where they need to be.
Okay.
The concept of it is how are we doing compared to what we should be doing and where we are. We call it optimal performance. So it's high output at a sustainable pace compared to one's own ability. So if you're okay with where you are, and this is the reason why our clients, we graduate them away from us, is because the goal is to get them to a place where, to your point, no, I'm good with where I am. I have the toolbox I need. I have the systems I need to get where I need to go. And because of that, we're going to move in that direction.
Yeah, I think you say that is semantics. I see it as a fundamental difference because I don't believe that that all people are fundamentally broken. There are broken people. So I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I just don't approach the conversation with that underlying view. And I think that's probably what the biggest difference in this conversation.
Right. So what would you define as a broken person?
I would define a broken person as a person that has the inability to love themselves. And so if they are unable to love themselves, then they're not able to love others either.
Got you. And then your definition of love, what is that? Just so I can be on the same page.
I think the definition of love goes into doing those things that nurture, care, feed, and uh, provide an environment where the person that you're loving can flourish.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think as you break those definitions down, and this is what gets really hard, when you're communicating an emotion through a logical form like words, you and I can have different definitions of love. Right. And that's where it gets really challenging. So again, if that's your definition of a broken person, is someone who can't love themselves, I would say, and I love my clients, the majority of them, when they come into our system, they have challenges with that. So is it the inability or just like if they're having trouble with it, are they broken or only if they can't do it?
Well, I think I think the inability, they're not aware that that's the issue either. And so there's a lack of awareness. Even if they are aware, they may not think that anything needs to change, because that begins to play into other things and other challenges that come up in that coaching relationship.
Gotcha. So enable or unaware would qualify for that. There's a study done about lack of awareness that absolutely just rocked my world, but isn't as big of a surprise when you actually think about it. But Harvard did this where they took 100, all the people and said, hey, are you self-aware? 95% said yes. Only 10 to 14% actually were. So the majority of people are unaware. And I would say the majority of them are unaware of what I'm describing as their brokenness, which means something that is not operating at the optimal level within their life. So again, it's the concept of I think the fundamental difference that you're saying is brokenness to me is not a permanent thing. Brokenness to me is something to address and be aware of. And we talk about we have this thing where we say you need to manage your weakness, leverage your strengths, right? Managing your weaknesses would be part of where you're broken. One of my weaknesses is writing, grammatically and spelling, right? Like you think, some things I say might bother you. Wait till you read an email from me, right? Like it is sometimes not English. And I think with that whole conversation, you sit there and you recognize that is a broken part of me. Now, there's two ways I can fix that broken part. Number one is I can go back and relearn the entire English language. Or number two, I can leverage some of the AI tools to help edit emails before I send them out.
Yeah.
My daughter, genetic mutation, her muscles don't work. Is she broken? Yes. There's an element of brokenness to her that we want to correct, we want to fix. And I think what happens is fixing someone or fixing ourselves, I don't think is a bad thing, nor should it be seen as a bad thing. I think we should be willing to fix ourselves, willing to go, I could be a better husband.
True.
Right?
So,
Yeah,
I mean, we spent
100%.
a lot of time circling around this whole concept. And I think it's okay because one of the things we talked about early on was planning your schedule. So people are like, how'd you go from brokenness into planning your schedule? I think there's more than one way to approach how you address an issue. And
100%.
so in terms of, the part of the conversation Matt and I were having earlier is that for me, I plan my schedule out for the week or I review that on Monday, right? So I know I'm not allowing anybody to book any additional meetings on my calendar. I know that the calendar is set. I can look and see what the landscape of everything that I have to do, what are some prep materials that I need to get together for those meetings. And then that helps me just look at that whole week and get ready. And so Matt, how do you guys do the weekly planning?
Yeah, we talk about planning on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, right? So planning before the race starts. And the thing we were talking about was the fact that, look, it is whichever way is working is what we want you to go off of. So if it works for you, I have clients who are like, I like to do it on Tuesday. Okay. This is what we found works, to your point. It's the concept of this is what we have found after working with many, many people. If you don't want to do the way we're sharing to do it, we're okay with it. We can't ensure you get the results that we've seen with other people, but you want to do it your way, you're more than welcome to. But the biggest focus is what's the fruit of the actions we're taking? Is it working? Does it happen? Is it doing what needs to be done? And that's the focus we're looking to make happen each time we work with people. So to your point, we have clients who don't even like to plan their week out, but that's the entire foundation of what we teach. It's just too much for them. I don't do, okay, well, that's fine. And when we have our coaching calls, we're talking about other things they need to understand. And the benefit of it is when you come into it with the understanding that you can be wrong, even with what we were just talking about, with the concept of everybody's broken, right? And if I'm wrong in that, that's fine. This is the method that we take is we take that brokenness and we go, look, it's not a big deal. Let's try to fix it. Whereas your method is, hey, there's room for improvement. Let's work on that. I think that based on how people hear that, they're like, man, I would never want to work with a guy that's going to say I'm broken. Then guess what?
And there are other people that say,
exactly.
well, if I need room for improvement, well, that's not strong enough. So it may be that very well there are people that are wired to be able to hear and receive what it is that you have to say. There are people that are wired, and I say this a lot, to be able to hear and receive things that I have to say. So I do think it is fruitful to have these kinds of conversations, because ultimately both of us want other people to get the end result of that they're looking for.
And
We
I think
want people to have success and fulfillment.
it comes to the concept of truth is constant, application changes. So for me to go, hey, this is the only way it works, and then I meet someone like you who's like, I do it on Monday, it works really well. It doesn't say that I'm wrong. It says that what mine is an opinion, not a truth. But application is what changes, because there's still truth to what it is it is valuable to plan out your week.
Yes.
How you do it, when you do it, what type of paper you use, digital, whatever it is, show me the fruit of what comes of it, and I'll tell you if it's worth doing. It's not the actual, we call it symptomatic solutions, right? So for example, we get a lot of clients who will come to us and say, man, we're having issues with communication. We're having issues with this. They'll go through it all. And we give the same solution every single time. It's not that your people are the problem. It's that your people have problems. And that's why you have people problems. That's why we've been able to go into any industry. It's not the fact, especially like as an engineer. As an engineer, I can't teach you how to be a better engineer. What we can teach you how to do is do all the other parts of your life better that allows you to be the highest level of producer or production that you need to be at. But it would almost be like as if, I walked in and I was like, hey, doc, I got a broken arm, man. My bone is sticking out. This hurts really bad. I need help. The pain's so bad. So what you do is you give me morphine, and that takes the pain away. The problem is 20 minutes later, I'm coming back to you because the root cause is not addressed. And the beautiful thing about people and what we found with working with people, it's not an easy industry to work with at all. You have the hardest variable that's ever been created coming at you at every angle, is that when you set it right, although it hurts sometimes, when you set it right and put a cast on it, meaning give it actual parameters and guardrails to keep it in the lane it needs to be, then it will reset itself properly. Now, all of this being said, people are like, man, that seems really constrictive. Humans work on structure and rhythm. That's where we operate best.
Mm-hmm.
Structures and rhythm. And what happened in COVID, which was super interesting, was yes, it was a terrible sickness, but societally, I noticed we lost structure and we lost rhythm.
Yeah.
I was working with Twitter at the time, and I'll never forget the first Zoom meeting we had because we couldn't come in person. And I'm sitting there, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, but to me, that's the afternoon. And I'm sitting there going like, y'all are still in your PJs. Some of you, I could smell the alcohol coming off the screen. You know what I mean? Like they were just waking up for this meeting. And I'm sitting here going like, man, we've lost our structure. We've lost our rhythm. So I don't want you to think of it as, man, it is so confining of what you need to do. No, we take the system and build it around you based on what you're trying to do. We just give the tools to actually do it.
Yeah, you framed that. It's really obvious. If a person comes in and a bone's sticking out of their arm, it's broken, you need to fix it. But there are people that may have internal injuries that you can't see, that it takes a little bit of discovery to go through. So it's not as simple as you're broken. It's, okay, something is wrong. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out what's going on. And then you may uncover what the issue is, but everything is not as simple as the bone sticking out of your arm.
And you know this, when you work with people, rarely do you see the bone. Rarely do you see the injury because they've lived their whole life not knowing it's there. So
they've gotten used to it.
Yeah, it's just part of how they operate. So we call it, how we bridge the gap is what we talk about, right? We don't come in and say y'all are broken. We say, look, there's gaps. What are the gaps in your life? What's stopping you from getting here to there? And when we have that conversation, there's 3 parts to it. You need to expose the gap. That's the hard part. You need to bridge the gap. That's where the tools come in. And you need to sustain the gap. That's where the coaching comes in. The exposing is exactly like you're saying, Doc. It's all questions. We don't come in and diagnose people. Number one, we're not qualified to. Number two, that's not the business I'm in. What we do is we come in and we just ask questions. What's happening? What's going on? What's not working? It's kind of like, hey, my stomach hurts over here. Cool. Well, what have you eaten? Well, and just constantly asking questions for people to go, you know what? Every time my boss does this, it fires me up. All right, cool. We got one. Let's find another one. And there's rarely just one, right? We call them motivational walls, and they get put up in people. And our job as a coach is to help bring those walls down by asking questions, by pointing out things, being loving and honest, right? That critical and supportive, and letting people have self-discovery. Maybe that's the reason why we're able to use some of the harsher words when we work with people, is because we're not the ones that tell them that. We're there to help them discover that room for improvement, that gap, that brokenness, whatever it might
And,
be,
and
to
that's a
put it along.
big difference. There's a big difference from me hearing you say someone is broken
Right.
and versus, hey, we're going to go down this path of discovery. And we're going to discover what's not working or what is broken.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's maybe that's where I could have cleared that up from starting off at the end point, where everything we do, even when we go in and work with groups, we can do this with 10 people, 10,000 people. It doesn't matter, because it's all about walking people through this process of evaluating themselves, examining themselves, and them going, huh, the job's not the problem. The marriage is. And actually, it's not even my spouse. It's me. And my kids aren't the problem. Oh, it's me. And how do we protect and change that one variable? And we always start with you and show you how to be the best version of you. And what we found is when we were able to elevate the version of you to the optimal version, uh, everything else, those other problems, tend to be less of an issue.
I love it. So, if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, what Matt is talking about is of interest to me, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
They can reach out directly to us, which is just basically lifepulseinc.com. You could email support@lifepulseinc.com. We also can put together a page they can go to at our Life Pulse site. There'll be lifepulseinc.com/, we'll just do EYS. So engineer your success, EYS. So it's easy. They can find us on Instagram anywhere they want at Life Pulse Inc. And they can always, like I said, check out our website, lifepulseinc.com.
Okay. No, it's been cool, man. It's been a really engaging conversation. It's been an interesting conversation. I do like the back and forth because this how I learn, right? Just in general, I like to actually do the thing to learn to work through and learn through it. Um, but I really do appreciate your time, your perspective, and the truth that you've brought as a foundation of the work that you do.
I appreciate you giving us the time. And again, I love when people push on what people say, right? And I don't think you did that in a bad way. I think it's a healthy way. And I think too many times we sit back and we're like, well, individuals said it, let's just accept it. No, if it doesn't sit well, question it
Yeah,
and have a
yeah,
conversation. But I think the part that was enjoyable is question it to get to an agreement, not question it to prove the point. And I
correct.
think that's the one thing that we have to realize is this society has gotten to a point where they're like, man, some of you might be listening to this podcast wondering, when's it going to get crazy? Like, it's on this path. And I think the beautiful thing, Doc, about how you were, again, questioning what I was saying is we don't have to agree to understand. Like, it's okay to disagree. I joke about it with clients. I'm like, hey, yeah, they're like, oh, the leadership team, me and this one guy, we never get along. It never works. We're always at odds. And I said, look, if two of you are in a partnership and you never argue, one of you is unnecessary.
Yep, yep.
Like, that is part of growth, is that questioning and pushing and fine tuning and iron sharpening iron. And I joke about it. I was like, oh, iron sharpening iron. I'm like, y'all know it's sparks, right? Like,
Yep.
it's not always fun. And I think when
Sparks and friction and heat are all a part
part
of
of
that
that,
sharpening process.
and I think that's the part that I hope that as people are listening and go, man, did these guys agree on anything? Yeah, I think we agree on the fact that there is truth that needs to be applied. I think we agree in the fact that there is room for improvement amongst people. And I think when we sit back and go, hey, there are multiple ways to address a problem. But the key is, if the person is the center of the problem, the person has to be the one to recognize the problem before they ever have a chance of doing anything about it.
Absolutely agree. So, Matt, before we close out, I typically will switch things around and we'll do a mic flip where
Okay.
you become the interviewer and
Cool.
I become the interviewee. What
Cool.
is one question that you have for me?
When it comes to being an engineer and as analytical as you are in that sense, how do you take the engineering mindset and help impact people who are not constants the way engineering theoretically needs to be?
Well, I think even if you look at mathematics, which is a really big part of engineering, you have those things that are variable. and you have those things that are constants. And we are always dealing with those variables. And so we may solve a particular situation for that variable for that person. And so you take the engineering mindset is, let's investigate to see what the issue is. Right? I have a certain set of solutions that I may want to apply, but let's investigate to see what the issue is. If we can begin to uncover what the issue is, what that problem is, then we can come up with a way in which to solve for that problem.
So, uh, what's your favorite part of working with people versus working on what you were trained in from an engineering perspective?
Best part of working with people is when you're able to help them have those aha moments, and that they're able to become aware of either something they've been doing right that they weren't aware of. So coming into a sense of awareness, and now you are aware, now what? What are you going to do about it? So it's getting to that point of, yes, I'm aware of the issue. Now let's take the steps to improve or take the steps to close that gap.
Do you find people know what they need to do next once sometimes that aha moment is such a they're
I
kind of
would
caught
say
back.
yes. And I used to end the podcast with this statement: many people know what to do, fewer people know how to do it, but there's a select group of people that follow through and do it. So I do think that people are aware, and they have some inkling sometimes of what to do, but some for whatever reason they may be unwilling to actually do it to
Mm,
make the change. And I think that's where coaching support, being in community, allowing people to be able to speak into your life, I think
mhm,
those things become very helpful and useful for those situations.
mm. And do you find that the solution, again, it is more complicated or more simple than some people tend to think?
I think it's almost always more simple than what people tend to think, because our thoughts about the possible implications or possible complications or possible outcomes are normally far more negative than what actually happens. And so we spend too much time thinking and not so much enough time doing.
Mm. Spoken like an engineer.
Well, if you remember, and I don't know if I said this on this podcast, but are you familiar with the movie Dune,
Yeah.
the series Dune? And so it would say that fear is the mind killer. So I was listening to another audiobook, science fiction book about something else. And it talked about that whole phrase that fear is the mind killer. But then it said worry is the time killer.
Mm,
And so when you're worrying, that kills your time, because all of your time and energy is focused on the thing that may happen, and you're
yeah.
not actually taking the steps that will mitigate that, or to test to see if in reality that will happen.
So how do you get someone to not worry? I've tried it with my wife and I tell her, don't worry. Doesn't work. Right. How do you get someone who is frozen by worry or
Mhm.
fear to act?
Well, I think first, for fear, it is understanding that, at least from my perspective, there's nothing wrong with fear. Fear inherently is here to try to keep you safe.
Absolutely.
And the issue becomes when you allow fear to be in the driver's seat and you're in the passenger seat. I will typically say that it is up to you to be intentional to be in the driver's seat. You could put fear in the back seat or in the trunk. It can
Right.
go along the ride, but it should not be the driver.
Hmm.
In terms of worry, I think it is, you choose what you focus on. So you can either focus on those things that may happen, or you can focus on what you want to happen. You can focus on possibility, or you can work through the issues in prayer. So it is almost impossible to pray and give something to God and to worry about it. It's impossible to hold on to something that you've given away. So
Right.
either you're giving it away or you're holding on to it.
You asked me the one word that describes me most. Let's start with this. How would you describe you? What's the one word that would describe you?
Translator.
Interesting. Why do you say
And
that?
that's being able to take concepts, regardless of how complex, and to translate them into a way or a package that people can actually listen, take it, and do something with it and apply it.
Awesome.
Hi, this is James, the coach in your corner. Today, I want to talk about things that you can try the next time you are in a conversation where you hit a genuine disagreement. These strategies can work whether that conversation is at home or in the workplace. Here are 5 things that you can try. 1, notice and name what's happening. Catch the moment where you shift from nodding along to, wait, I don't see it that way, and name it both for yourself and for the person you're in a conversation with. This will help you not to slip into autopilot or move into avoidance. 2, seek to understand first. Get curious and ask clarifying questions to make sure you really understand where the other person is coming from before you make your point. This is where you define your terms instead of defining each other. Stay with the language and not the person. 3, question the ideal, not the identity. As you dig in, challenge the logic, the thinking, the approach, not the character or the motives of the person sitting across from you. 4, return to a shared purpose. If you can find it, this is where the gold is at. What are you both actually trying to accomplish? That common ground is almost always there. Find it and come back to it when the conversation seems to be very tense. 5, accept the sparks. That's what happens when iron sharpens iron. Stay in the conversation and work through it. You can understand someone without agreeing with them, and that's often enough to keep moving forward, not just by yourself, but together. This is Dr. James Bryant, and I want you to be great this week. Thanks.